Trauma-related mental health problems are often complicated, but they are also common. There are many life experiences and risk factors that may lead an individual to develop such problems. So we should never judge or compare with others. In other words, I experienced many traumatic events in my life, both during and after my police career. But I never judge what others are going through by comparing their experiences to mine. Regardless of the causes, what was most relevant was the impact PTSD had on my life and the lives of those closest to me. I'll start with hypervigilance. I could rarely relax. I was constantly alert for danger and scanning for threats, particularly in public places like shopping centres. And in cafes and restaurants, I never sat with my back to the door. I describe my threat level bar graph as being green for relaxed and red for combat ready. For many years, I lived permanently in the yellow to orange region, so it didn't take much to flip me over to red. At night, if I heard even the slightest noise in my house, I would flip straight to red, get out of bed and patrol through the house to make sure my family was safe. My sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, freeze, had largely taken over. Combined with the nightmares, hypervigilance contributed to the next problem, chronically poor sleep. From the onset of my nightmares, I experienced serious problems with sleep. I'd often get off to sleep okay, but most nights I would wake a couple of hours later and fail to get back to sleep. Once awake, my brain would switch on and I'd lie in bed ruminating over work and other stresses. Sleep problems are a very common symptom of many mental health conditions, including anxiety and depression. There are so many physical and psychological restorative functions that occur during healthy sleep, the benefits of which I was denied due to chronically poor sleep. For many years, I survived on between 2 and 5 hours of sleep a night, and that is simply not sustainable. Living on very little sleep also contributed to other problems, including anger and irritability. Being constantly tired, stressed, and wound up with raw nerves led to me developing a hair-trigger temper, where sudden loud noises, like someone dropping crockery in the kitchen, would set me off. At work, I became increasingly aggressive when dealing with confrontational situations, not only out on the street, but also internally with difficult colleagues and managers. At home, I was often in an irritable mood and not the easiest person to get along with. I'd frequently come home from work and need to be left alone until I could decompress. Regular irritability and bad moods put a strain on relationships with my wife and kids, as did another problem, emotional numbing. This psychological symptom of PTSD had a destructive impact on my personal life, particularly my relationships. I don't know the science of why emotional numbing is such a common symptom of trauma. I'll leave that to the experts. But as for my own experience, I think the best way to describe it is this. Whenever I witnessed something horrific, dealt with raw grief and loss, or nursed victims of crime through sometimes years of court cases, I either avoided or suppressed all the normal human emotions that I should have experienced so I could get on with the job. The more I did it, the less I was able to tap into my emotions, even at times when I should have. It was a protective mechanism to avoid hurt and distress, and over time I largely lost the ability to experience positive feelings like happiness and love. At home, I was often withdrawn and experienced feelings of disconnection, mostly towards those closest to me. So for those 8 years, there was a lot going on. Lots of destructive, emotional and behavioural problems that had a significant negative impact on my life and the lives of those around me. As I've mentioned, I had made a choice to keep the nightmares secret, but when it came to the other problems I've described above, I didn't make a connection. I remember there were so many times I lay awake at night plagued with thoughts I believed no one else would think, usually involving violence. I clearly remember driving to work one morning and a red traffic light not only caused me to stop my car, but also snapped me out of a violent what-if scenario that was playing out in my head. I sat there watching pedestrians crossing the road and green light traffic moving off, all the while thinking that I was going crazy. Who else would think the sorts of things you think about? On 2 separate occasions, years apart, I challenged my decision to keep my problems secret and took the terrifying step of seeking help confidentially through counselling.